The exhibition is built in oppositions, and we speak about, in 3 chapters, we go from the language of Goya. He began in the Baroque time, and then he went with the classicism fashion and also the popular fashion. So that's kind of the first chapter where we talk about how he learned and he integrated all those things. And he also the popular with the Goyesque style that he named, that was named after him. He makes this Piedad the Pietà coming from his travel in Italy. He had a formal education in a late Baroque painter's atelier, and later on at the academy. And he also went to and did the Grand Tour. He traveled to Italy, so he had all the tools of his time, And he has a very classical education that he later reconvened and used in his own way. And we have this magnificent example of a very young Goya in a very classical Roman form, and it's a very stony, like stiff Piedad, no? That's very difficult to see Goya there, but you see how well he was trained. In the second chapter, we speak about how this popular fashion and the cultivated fashion were also meshed by him, and he was in the circle of intellectuals and so on, committed to addressing the evils of the country, and he was also very much committed into those things. The third part addresses, so it's the language, the conceptual, and the last part is the legacy. And we take from his main traits, which would be sarcasm, but also the composition. He's a great composer, and he's a great painter, in fact. And from there, we take to pop, informalism, and abstraction in the 20th century Spain. The idea of Goya, Goya as an idea or as a concept, was built mainly in the 19th century. So with all the stereotypes and topics from the 19th century, and through most of it through French eyes. There is also stereotypes that comes from our own culture, with the popular and so on. But mainly Goya has been seen for that dark, very fantasy type of mystery, dark themes that are there and that he does. But in our cultural context, if you see the whole work, you can contextualize better how he was looking at those things and speaking about superstition. So he's not Baudelaire speaking about the Caprichos de Goya, but Goya, in his own context, is speaking about the evils of superstition and rituals and so on. So it gets contextualized in a different frame, and that's what we wanted to do. The intellectuals of Goya's time, they not only diagnosed which were the bad things that were happening in the country, but they also put in place some projects, educational and industrialization projects, to ameliorate the life of the people and the life of the country, because we were in a decay. We had been an empire, Spain as a country, and that was not happening anymore. And they wanted to improve education and industry, mainly agricultural as well. And at the time of Goya, of course, there was the French dynasty already in Spain. So they brought this idea of the royal fabrics that was there, and that served to the court. And this enlightened, these intellectuals start promoting academies and institutions to promote popular industry. And that turned into a big movement of ceramic fabrics and so on that were taken again at the end of in the middle of the 20th century with Sargadelos. We have an example, a very nice example of how that was taken again during Franco's time with avant-garde kind of with the avant-garde kind of influx for the integration of arts, and how artists was also called into action and involved themselves in changing the outset, the landscape of a very difficult time, as it was a dictatorship in 20th century Spain. We started by looking at what the artists were looking at Goya. Why is Goya still an important master in Spanish art? And how Arroyo, Saura, Oteiza, and also the contemporary artists, what are they looking at when they look at Goya? And we found that it's kind of a common place that is Velázquez if you go for composition and painting, and Goya for the themes. And that's not true. We found out that Goya is being artists always take from the other artists, no, and they go to Goya also for composition, also for language. He was a master painter. We have the Marquesa de Villafranca, which is a beautiful painting where you see how light he paints. It's almost transparent. How he takes out the lights. How is it that quick brush, very lazy, no, just few strokes and he's done, no? And of course the artists know that and they look for it, and mainly in that composition that is more extravagant, like the engravings or also the black paintings, there is a lot of experimentation. In that sense, Goya was very contemporary. He didn't understand the work as finished. It was kind of an evolution, and he did try. He has all kinds of materials, all kinds of. When lithography came out, he started doing that. When he was also already a master in engraving, no? And he's quite experimental in that sense, and that's something that the artists go to look at him for. And in that last path, many of the relations are relations that the artists have seen for themselves. So it's really just showing what they were looking at Goya. Yeah. Well, I think there are three artists that are major in that last part, which are the three main for three main movements. No, there's Arroyo with that sarcastic pop art view that is very important, and he spoke a lot about Goya. He was a big fan of Goya. And he's from Eduardo Arroyo would be the later one. Antonio Saura, who also has a lot of essays and writings regarding Goya, and even has a series of with the dog, the drowning dog from the Pinturas Negras. And he also looked a lot to tauromachias and went back and again to the Prado to see him. And is the example of informalism, which would be the Spanish express abstract abstract expressionism, and the Noteiza, which is still is, but all of them are, but still is kind of a reference for sculpture, and looked at Goya first in 1946, for conferences, and looked at the compositions of Goya in the tauromaquia, the way he composes space in those shadow compositions of the tauromachias. And he builds from there a whole theory on how Picasso is taking that. We have beautiful Picassos explaining that relation that Oteiza sees in Goya, and then how he makes up in his sculptures that kind of space. Later on, he's going to go to Velázquez, and that happens a lot. No, you go to Goya and then to Velázquez, or you come from Velázquez and you go to Goya. So they're kind of a ping pong, and of course we have that example there because, of course, Goya looked at Velázquez as well. So yeah, but that would be those three names are the really key features in the exhibition. But he doesn't mock it. It's always an empathic